Welcome to the Kosher Australia webinar series, broadcasting to you live from the Kosher Australia offices in North Caulfield section of Victoria, Australia. My name is Rabbi Moshe Schreck. I will be your host tonight for this webinar. Thank you for joining us. Just to let everyone know, our listeners know, we have the option, you can send in questions to our live chat, or you can email us at marketing@kosher.net.au. Those are two ways you can send in questions as we're broadcasting live. Please feel free to send in the questions and we will endeavor to answer them. Tonight, this evening, I have a very, very special guest, our general manager of the whole entire Kosher Australia operation, Mr. Yankel Wajsbort. Hello, Yankel.
Moshe, how are you going?
Baruch Hashem, very good. Thank you so much for joining us at 7 p.m., which is probably the middle of supper and things are flying in your house maybe, but you took the time out.
Indeed.
Maybe we should thank your wife more than yourself.
Yes, she's watching.
I'm sure she is. But thank you very much for joining us. We have an excellent, fascinating topic for tonight. We will be discussing why do companies become kosher? Why would a company want to become kosher? So let us first start with some information about you, Mr. Wajsbort. Now,
call me Yankel.
Call you Yankel. Okay, Yankel. What is your role at Kosher Australia?
Technically, my role is to be the general manager, which means literally to manage everything in general. Therefore, I manage all the staff, but I also step in when required. Shkocha work, sometimes I do audits, paperwork. Haven't been the rabbi yet, but sometimes it comes close. So I pretty much do everything. I'm also responsible for the financials, the administration. I report to a board of directors, a voluntary board of directors who oversee Kosher Australia. So to an extent, I'm the face of Kosher Australia at the moment.
Very nice. Sounds like it's a full-time job, I would say.
It's a little bit hectic. My day starts around about 5:30 in the morning. I get to a restaurant about 4:45. I'm late, 5:50. Rush off to shore, get the kids to school, even the uncooperative ones. Get to work, in between calls from restaurants, etc. Finish the day, get home, calls from rabbis visiting restaurants as well in the middle of the evening, calls from consumers. It's full on, but I love it.
That's good. That's probably crucial for the job to be successful, is to love what you're doing. Now, Kosher Australia is unique in the sense that most hashgachas, the general manager would not be going around to restaurants early in the morning, or maybe a Motzei Shabbos function sometimes, but it's a small operation here, and we all take responsibility for everything. So sometimes the general manager himself will come into this one restaurant that told me he feels bad that Yankel comes in at 6 o'clock in the morning to check his vegetables. He feels bad. The general manager is coming, but that is how it works over here in Kosher Australia. Now, how long have you been here at Kosher Australia?
I've been here just on 11 and a half years. October 2003, just after Rosh Hashanah, actually. Tzom Gedalia 2003 is when I started.
An auspicious day in Jewish history.
Yes.
Now, what made you interested in kosher? How did you wind up here?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think I always wanted to give back. I've got a background in manufacturing. I've worked for Cadbury for 6 years, Cadbury Confectionery. I worked as a manufacturing consultant. I managed an IT division of a manufacturing company which had branches in Australia, Mexico, Eastern Europe. So I have that type of background. And Dr. Peter Klude, who was the previous person in charge of Kosher Australia, was seeking to retire. Mizrahi advertised, and I thought, why not give a bit back, work with the Yiddish community. Let's see what we can do.
Very nice. And what formal education or experience do you have that kind of helped you along here?
Okay, as I mentioned, I worked as a manufacturing consultant. Part of that, I actually studied manufacturing theory, so I've got actually a degree in manufacturing systems. And again, together with the experience managing people, dealing with clients, dealing with the way manufacturers operate, gave me a bit of insight into the way food industry operates. And again, I work through the food industry, so I think that's helped a lot because you need to talking with most of our clients. We're dealing with people who are technically oriented, quality assurance people, manufacturing people. You need to talk the same terminology.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as my father used to say, if you want to learn Gemara, you have to learn the Gemara Sprach. You have to know the lashon of the Gemara, the way the Gemara uses terminology. Similarly, if you're talking to manufacturers, you've got to talk the same terminology.
And for them to take you seriously as a professional,
Correct.
you have to.
When you can't walk in there and say, you know, what's this and what's that, and they expect a degree of professionalism and knowledge, which I think Baruch Hashem most of or all the people we send out to manufacturers now, they've got formal qualifications, primarily because that gives them credibility to deal with manufacturers.
Right. The people should view kosher as not just like some, fly by the kite operation. It's a serious professional endeavor that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Very nice. Beautiful. So let's start our topic tonight. It's a fascinating topic. This question I know I get the question, I'm sure you do. Often people ask us, why would a company want to be kosher? And especially, we're living in Australia. This is not the United States. This is not Eretz Yisrael, where you have a much larger kosher consumer base. So before I ask the question, I'm just curious, how many kosher consumers are there in Australia?
Okay, well, the approximate number of Jews in Australia is about 150,000, based upon census. The Zionist Federation have told us that approximately 50%, which is pretty typical across the world, are either strictly kosher or kosher preferential, which means they'll go into a supermarket if they see a product which is kosher, they'll prefer to choose that over something which is not kosher. But that translates maybe, let's say, the way the family structure is, maybe 25,000, 30,000 families in Australia at this stage, which will be preferentially kosher. So the market, we again calculate as being approximately $400 million a year in turnover. So while in the scheme of things it's small, Australian market, last I looked for somewhere retail food industry about $11 billion, maybe $15 billion or higher. Kosher market is still
quite
small, but lucrative.
Mm-hmm. So companies, they once they take on kosher, they see in the revenues that they'll see it increase.
Generally, that's why there's two reasons why companies want to become kosher. The first reason is because they want to get more revenue, and so they see kosher as a niche market, usually underpopulated, so there's not a lot of competition in that market. They figure if they go kosher, they will get access to these 25,000, 30,000 families, plus they may look at the export market, and this can be jump-starting them to the export market, say to the US or to Israel, the big markets overseas, US, Israel, South Africa, England, France, Argentina, Canada, even China as a feeder to the US. So they'll look at that from a commercial perspective. The other reason is that some of the big manufacturers, they go kosher because they feel it's part of the community service.
Like an altruistic type.
Well, most large manufacturers want to be seen to be community friendly.
Right.
And they want, just like they would like to cater for different segments of the community, Jews, which are considered to be the primary kosher consumers, not exclusively Jews, but the primary kosher consumers, they view them again as being part of their cultural outreach, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I know the OU, I think they say that they around 10% of their consumer base are actually non-Jewish. Do we have a figure here?
Probably not. I wouldn't have a figure. I think that the OU's figures, which they're basing on Minto research from the early 2000s, kosher consumers are approximately 25%, maybe 30% of the market. The rest were vegetarians, vegans, certain religious requirements like Seventh-day Adventists, Buddhists, Hindus, people who are averse to meat. We looked at the best figures we have was we deal with the kosher restaurants, and we've talked over the last few weeks. We've been reviewing kosher restaurants doing the annual review, and I think most of them report somewhere between 40 to 60% of their clientele are not Jewish.
Right.
But they're attracted to, I suppose, the perception of the kosher food is cleaner, better, restaurants run better.
Right.
Okay.
I guess if someone is like researching, someone's looking into the product, it's not just left to the owner, but someone is hashgacha basically. There's someone.
Yeah, there's oversight,
Yeah.
and the oversight is better than say maybe sometimes some of the local governments. Maybe there's a feeling that there's another level of oversight.
Right. So basically, so what I'm hearing is that there are two reasons. One is for revenues, economic reasons, and then we have reasons that are, they want to give the impression, or they actually want to cater to the broader community. So those are the reasons that they tell you
Correct.
why they're interested in kosher. Okay, very interesting. Now, how often, how does the process work? Do we go out and actually try to get more clients? Is it by word of mouth? Do they come to us? Is there a pattern? Is it just random?
We have attempted all things because, of course, I take the scattergun approach, which is try everything and hope something works. And Baruch Hashem, I think some things have worked. Our cold calling rate, if you want to call it like that, when you call up 100 companies, in a normal sales environment, you're expecting a 10%, for your targeted market, you'd expect 10% success. Ours is around about 2% or 1%. Maybe we're not the greatest salesmen or cold callers in the world. So very few companies will go kosher because we ask them. They will go kosher if consumers ask them. If enough consumers ask them. But primarily, companies approach us and they want to go kosher. They either get a grasp of the kosher market and say there's a valuable market, or they may have an export requirement, or they may have a customer requirement. And so they pick themselves. And usually they come to us not so much because of what they search the website, because within the industry, everyone talks, everyone networks within their industries. And we have, I suppose, made a lot of effort to present ourselves as being professional, good customer feedback, good customer support. We try to make the process as painless as possible, given that there is some pain involved in going kosher. And within the networks, the businesses talk with each other, and usually someone will say, well, I want to go kosher, do you know anyone who's done it or anyone who handles it? And a lot of times we'll get a call as a referral. I've talked to so-and-so and they reckon you guys are the best at doing this, and we get a lot of referrals coming through.
I think there was one case that Morty Handers told me where competition I think it was in Indonesia, recommended.
Correct. So quite frequently what we will do is, if we do a good job from a customer service perspective, and obviously the level of kashrus is very well recognized worldwide, because obviously if we weren't doing a good job from the kashrus perspective, what benefit would be to get kosher with Kosher Australia? I mean, you don't just go through the exercise. So obviously our kashrus is good. There's someone to talk to. We do a good job. So therefore we get referred to. That's basically the primary source of kosher leads. Mm-hmm. And we do chase up companies. We do attempt to talk to companies and try as much as we can. That's all part of the puzzle.
Right. But unless they feel that it's
correct.
Worth their while, they're not going to.
Yeah, we can't force anyone to go kosher. In fact, we can't even force companies, which it's totally irrational for them to go kosher, because their main market is kosher. They still won't do it unless they want to do it.
Mm-hmm. Right. But I think there is this impression that it's the kosher supervising agency that decides which companies to take on and not to take on. I would
love that. I would love to be able to say that. Would be fantastic. Unfortunately, it's not something that happens. Look, we can drive kosher. I mean, the driving of kosher is we don't make the exercise too expensive. We do a lot of the work. In comparison, let's say in the US market where kosher is extremely strong, the kashrus authorities over there have a lot of control and actually can dictate a little bit to the companies that they have to do a lot more in order to documentation wise, and meaning the kosher authority allowing them not to do so much work. We've taken the approach that smaller market, we want it to happen. We'll chase up the documentation for you. providing you want to go kosher, and you're happy with us to do the documentation chase, we will do it.
So we'll make it as easy as possible for them
Yeah.
to become kosher. And I think to add on to what Yankel was saying, I think there's a common misconception that we have this Kohl's initiative. Was it Kohl's, Woolworth, and who else has the stickers on the?
There's a few companies coming through. Big Fruit Palace. There's Aunt Maggie's in Malvern,
Right.
Which is driven.
It's not us. We don't go to Kohl's and say, please put our label on
No.
your shelf. It's more they see that there's a big difference in their sales.
They want to make the kosher shop, the shopping experience, as easy as possible. And the easiest way is you walk down a shelf, an aisle at a Kohl's or at a Woolworths, and you can see clearly a kosher symbol on the label. You say, it's easy. I don't have to think.
Right.
I don't have to look, dare I say, look a book or even look up an app. It's there in front of me, and it just makes the experience so much easier for a lot of people.
I know another question people have often is that how come on some products we have the actual Kosher Australia symbol on the packaging and sometimes it's not. Again, that's not our doing. That's
no. Well, in the US, where consumers are driven by the kosher symbol on packaging, if it hasn't got a kosher symbol, it's not kosher. It's pretty simple. Similarly, in Israel, you won't find a product in Israel sold as kosher without having a stamp from the Badatz or of Landau or even the local Rabbi Nordz or Rabbi Rashid. You won't have it. If it's not kosher, you won't have it. And in fact, you can't even market a product in Israel unless it has the issue or the authorization of the chief rabbinate. However, in Australia, we've grown up with lists, and we haven't been pedantic about getting a symbol on the packaging because we see a lot of companies a little bit hesitant to put a symbol on. So we felt that if we enforced that, we wouldn't have actually many kosher products. And in fact, over the last 12 months, I don't know if anyone's been familiar with the backlash against halal, is a lot of companies have pulled off all their religious symbols off food packaging because they obviously don't want to be seen to be playing favourites, and therefore they're probably down the track maybe less symbols, at least in the near term, until people get confidence back to be able to put them on.
Right. Very interesting. Now, in your time here at Kosher Australia, what percentage increase have you seen, or how many products were certified when you first joined, and now has it been an increase, a decrease, has it stayed more or less the same?
When I started, way back, when I used to have black hair and I had more hair on my head certainly, we certified about 50 companies, approximately 300 products. At the present, the last count, we certified 486 companies, just a tick over 14,000 products. So we've had a tiny bit of growth in the last 11 years. We've also been, I believe, because of the way it was a strategy. This doesn't happen because Uncle woke up one day and decided to have more kosher food.
Yeah.
We drove it as a strategy through companies that we were dealing with to say, we were dealing with them and said, you've only got a couple of products kosher. How about we get all your products kosher? It's not going to cost you anything, but your ingredients need to be kosher. Right? What do we do? Well, contact your ingredient supplier. They need to be kosher. If they're not kosher, tell them to give me a call. The ingredient supplier went through the same process. So for a few years, we were driving kosher down through some ingredient supply chains.
Going backwards, so to speak.
Backwards,
retail, let's say, up to the...
Correct. So therefore, I don't know if you mentioned in the previous webinar, that therefore we had the capacity that companies which may not have been able to go kosher because too many ingredients needed to be changed, let's say in 2005, by the time we get to 2007, all the ingredients are kosher, so kosher becomes less of a barrier. And I think as a consequence, by generating, I suppose, this interest in kosher through the manufacturing supply chains, it's led to other kosher authorities being able to benefit from that. Because not everyone comes, while I'm good, not everyone comes to us.
Right.
I mean, other organisations, and you have certifications over here. They may go to Sydney, they may go to WA, they may go to Adust. They'll go to other kosher authorities as well, so we're not the only ones. So that has generally generated more growth within the whole industry.
Right, very good, very interesting. That's quite an impressive growth. It's all because of that chain. Has been more kosher consumers coming into the scene here?
Well, I think kosher consumers, look, we like to involve, we see ourselves as being part of belonging to the community. We work for the community. And we want to partner with kosher consumers. We do it in a number of ways. We, for example, encourage kosher consumers if they see something they're not happy with at a restaurant or at a caterer or a catered event to call us up, to let us know. I mean, things happen.
Things happen, and we to
Exactly.
some extent we rely on the consumers to let us know.
And we also invite consumers to be our partner to an extent in contacting manufacturers, not hassling them, not being nasty with them, but to
letting them know,
gently prodding them to say there are people who want to consume their products, but they can't because it's not kosher.
Right.
Make it kosher, you've got to sell.
Interesting. Okay, so that's very, very informative about as far as how do companies become kosher. Now let's move over a little bit to the actual kosher certification process. If you can give us a little idea of what it takes, let's say from that first phone call or email down to the actual time that the certificate is issued, what goes on?
Okay, a company will contact myself usually, and seeking kosher, I will run them through the basic process, which means they have to fill out a checklist. We would have to evaluate the checklist, work out what needs to be changed or what documentation is required. We would then send someone to visit the facility. All being well, we issue the kosher certificate. They sign up an agreement with us, which primarily is to let us know when they make changes. That also includes how many audits we would do on an annual basis, and that will be get a kosher certificate issued. That may take a week or two. That may take months, because depending on on the company drive, and depending on what changes are required, that will make a difference. For example, just today, we sent Rabbi Baskin is making his way back from the wilds of central Queensland, visiting a factory which is 5 hours inland from Brisbane. Wow. They contacted us last October. So while it was easy to work out the ingredients, we have to get someone over there. You can't certify a company without visiting them. No. So we have to visit. So we can't. So therefore, we send people all over the place. It's not done by remote control.
Right. So it could take a while. So
it can take a while. It can be very quick.
Right. It depends on the company.
It really depends on the company.
Now, how many hours of work would you say? How many people involved to get a typical, if there is such a thing as a typical company kosher?
There'd be at least, from our side or from the manufacturing side, I can't tell you. Probably they may have. If you go to Indonesia, they'll have a whole team. In Australia, depending on the size of the company, maybe just one person. From our side, from myself, there'll be an auditor usually separate. There'll be a secretary, administration manager who will be involved in organising bookings, maybe getting a rental car, flights, accommodation, meals. So we have to organise, obviously. We send people in a way which is menschlich. Right. As far as hours, again, that's very hard. We deal with flavour houses, and we'll spend hundreds of hours a year on a flavour house. Each, as I'm sure we've discussed before, each flavour, we're working on Morty's working on a flavour for Indonesia, rosemary flavour, has 80 ingredients in it. Okay, so flavours can be complicated. Simple manufacturers, let's say you would allocate maybe 40 man hours on the certification.
Okay, so that adds up. When you're dealing with 490 or so companies, And the maintenance also, I guess, is in order
Correct.
at least once a year, sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5 times a year.
And we offer, all companies are offered that they can add as many products as they like, whenever they like, provided they comply. We'll obviously check them through. So we'll get companies frequently adding new products. So you think you're finished with them for the year,
then you have to
go back, go through the process once again, go through it again. But that's okay, because that's what we're here for.
as mentioned last time in the webinar, Rabbi Baskin mentioned that we don't charge per product, we charge per facility, per
Correct.
company actually. So whether they certify one product or 1,000 products, that's the same, it's the same
Exactly.
charge. And what's the reason for that setup?
Very simply, we want more products kosher.
That I guess there's no reason not to certify more
Correct.
products. It won't cost them anything else.
We want to make more products kosher, therefore we load it in the company's favor. So if they get one product, suppose we win. If they get 1,000 products, they win. Not a problem. We win anyway.
Right. That's right. That's a very healthy way to look at it. Now, why would it be that in the same company can have some products that are kosher, and will have some products that are not kosher?
Well, there's a couple of reasons for that. The obvious reason is because the kosher products are kosher, and the non-kosher products contain non-kosher ingredients.
I didn't think of it. That's unbelievable.
I know. Go in us. There are other reasons. Sometimes manufacturers approach kosher as what we call an allergen. So everyone knows that there are people with lactose intolerance, nut intolerance, and they have special allergen areas or limitations to what they make. They've got most companies run with allergen matrices, which means they can manufacture non-allergens first, and then they manufacture things with allergens going forward. Some companies view kosher as an allergen. We have to do this. These number of products are kosher. Beyond that, no, you're not allowed to look at it. We're not giving you access to that because we're only authorizing these products. It's not our desire. It's not our decision. We nudge companies. There's a well-known company which manufactures peanut butter, which I won't name the name.
It's a good idea. Not the name.
We've asked. I've probably asked them 30 times now. We visit the facility where the peanut butter is made, but they're not interested in the peanut butter being kosher. And it is kosher.
Peanut butter.
We don't know.
Right.
We don't know.
You're asking them, can we please come in and just check it out and see?
Correct.
And for some reason they're not interested.
Correct. And we've asked them, and for fear I don't want to be seen to be a nudnik.
Yeah, no, you got to be careful.
So we've got to be careful. So some products, again, we start off with a company, which probably not a bad idea to mention them, a company called Freedom Foods now, which anyone who goes to the health food section of any of the Coles or Woolworths will see all the Freedom Food cereals are kosher. The company started off saying, look, we've got a range of 5 cereals. We want kosher because we're exporting to the US market. So myself and Morty had chats with them and
explained.
Just a little bit here, a little bit there. And we said, look, there's no cost to you guys if you give us all the ingredients for all your cereals. Beginning it was a bit of, no, we don't really want it. And then eventually they caved because we were nice about it. Well, let's put it this way. All their cereals are kosher. All their cereal bars are kosher. They've extended it to their milks. Wow. And they've extending it further as much as they can because they see the value in the kosher market.
What's the name of this product again?
Freedom Foods.
Freedom Foods. Yeah, sold at Coles, Woolworths.
Coles, Woolworths, health food stores, and frequently they're on special at Coles. Very cheap.
Very nice, very interesting. Now, so we are a kosher certifying agency. Now, do we also advise them as far as, let's say, where the kosher markets are? Do you give them advice as far as how or where to sell the products, or we just stick to kosher and they take care of everything else?
Every company which gets kosher certified, we give them a little care package, which says, now that you're kosher, you need to get your products into the kosher market. Why? Because most companies go kosher because of the commercial benefit. If they don't get the commercial benefit, they won't stay kosher. No matter how little we charge them, it's still an overhead which they don't want if they're not getting any value out of it. So we try to explain to them. If they don't understand, we put them in contact with distributors Not that is not our job. Your standard kosher certification authority will not do that.
Yeah, we'll certify it, and then you take care of
It's up
everything
to you.
else.
But sometimes you've got to lead people by the hand.
That's right.
And much as we try, some companies are resistant to marketing the product which they have where we know they will get maximum value. You can only try.
That's right. Can only try for sure. Okay, so that's very informative how the whole certification process works. Now, a final general interest question might be the most interesting. These usually are the general interest questions. So as the general manager, and you're really on the front lines of kosher certification, what would you say are the three biggest misconceptions out there that our consumers have about kosher?
Consumers or manufacturers?
We'll do both.
Okay. Well, you've touched almost on all of them. Consumers think that we control what's kosher, and if Yankel doesn't like the product, it's not kosher.
I thought that's not the case.
Sadly, if it were that easy, no, the control of kosher, of what is kosher, not the halachic perspective is from the Rav, obviously, the Rabbi, Rabbinic Administrator, Rabbi Mordechai Gutnick, who's acknowledged worldwide as one of the leaders in kosher certification in terms of his knowledge and breadth of halacha and experience. So he determines any halachic issues. But ultimately, the determining factor is we will give the manufacturer always a solution. Mm-hmm. Even if they're doing something which is like really, really out there, which it's not going to, you pretty much, it's not going to happen to be kosher. They're using trace gelatin, or they're using really trace ingredients, or they're making it on a meat plant. Whatever the things are, we will always offer a solution. They may not necessarily like the solution, but we'll give them a solution which is a way forward to get kosher.
We don't just say no, you can't do this. We say, what about that? The approach is, let's work it out together. Let's try to find the solution.
In fact, there's one company, there's one company which stands out, which we certified really early on, which we sent the rabbi to when they were using very non-kosher ingredients in production. And the rabbi, who was a charmer, as anyone knows, Rabbi Gutnick knows that he's a diplomat, and he's a charming person and a gentleman and a scholar, believe it or not. He explained to them that, look, you're using chicken soup through it's going to be very difficult. And and the company said, Rabbi, we're going to change the facility.
Wow.
And it took them 2 months. They eliminated all the tray from the facility. The product is very well sold in the kosher market, very, very popular. I would gather that almost every kosher consumer uses this product now. But we gave them a solution. Right. We could have just walked away and said, "Oh, this is too hard for you," but we gave them a solution. So we always give them a solution. Number one.
So that's the first misconception we're saying is that the consumers might think that we control the market. We don't really. It's about what the companies. It's their decision to decide to become kosher.
Correct. We make it. The second misconception is it's all about the money. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if the company doesn't go kosher, it's because they're not willing to pay hefty fees. The typical kosher certification would cost less than it would cost you to call in a sparky or a plumber to do work in your house. So people who trumpet and say, we're doing community service, we're doing it for free. Well, Kosher Australia fees are laughable. We do it to cover costs because we have staff which have to be paid. And that's primarily what we do.
And this is a non-for-profit organization.
It's a not-for-profit organization. Correct. We work really, really hard so that we get a lot of certifications so that covers costs. The third misconception is the classic one which most manufacturers call up and say, they always call me rabbi, which is really nice. I say, no, my father was a rabbi, not me, but that's nice of you to honor me. But rabbi, they say, so after Yankel, so when can we get a rabbi in to come and bless our factory? And I say, I can do it over the phone for you if you like, but we don't, kosher certification is not about blessing the factory, it's about checking through ingredients. And I go, oh, this sounds like very much like one of our quality systems audits. And I go, that's indeed, it's far closer to a quality systems audit than to a religious ceremony. So those are the misconceptions we come across a lot.
Very interesting. Okay, I think we've run our limit. I would like to thank everyone for joining us. Mr. Wajsbort, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Very informative. And we look forward to seeing everyone at the next webinar, to be announced when that will take place. Bez Hashem.